Well, good morning, everyone. If I could have your attention, we will begin this convocation on perspectives on playing the national anthem at Goshen College. Thank you for coming out this morning. Well, you may or may not know the names of the husband-wife duo, television commentators and political consultants, Mary Matlin and James Carville. Mary was the former President Bush's senior advisor. James was the former President Bill Clinton's senior advisor. One is an ardent Republican, the other a rabid Democrat. They argue with each other in front of millions of television viewers daily. In a recent Valentine's column, they co-wrote, they tease each other. Mary affectionately calls James my little serpent head. He teases that she's more like Attila the Hun, so he says simply, I capitulate, retreat, and surrender. Not. She says he's a hopeless romantic. He says, I look at my wife and I think, darn, he doesn't say darn, but I don't deserve this woman. There's hope for all the rest of you bald-headed, squinty-eyed guys out there. In spite of their deep philosophical differences they say they will never get the other to change from, they are deeply in love and have the greatest respect for each other. In my own family, my mother and I grew up in very different contexts. She on an Amish farm in Iowa, going to a one-room school until she was in 8th grade. I grew up in a multicultural urban center of Tampa, Florida, where my high school, grades 10 through 12, was 3,300 students. She and I never voted for the same candidate. We have quite different theological points of view. She is no longer part of the Mennonite Church. I am. During World War II, my father served 4 years in the civilian public service as a conscientious objector digging latrines, privies, toilets, for the Florida State Department of Health rather than go to war. His brother was a career military officer serving in Korea and Vietnam. My point in this roundup of our family differences is to say, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that in spite of our differences, each of us would lay down our lives for the other without hesitation, without question. Our love for each other was and is as strong as ever, hands down. In a convocation at the beginning of this semester, I described Goshen College as having two dominant schools of thought. One on the prophetic side of the continuum that challenges things as they are, oftentimes but not always from outside the mainstream. The other school focuses on sustaining systems or changing systems from within. What I said then and mean even more today is this, that I long for a synthesis, or at least an accommodation, where both schools of thought, indeed other schools of thought that are reflected in our body politic as well, are given voice here at Goshen College. It would have been far easier to maintain the status quo and to avoid the discussion and decision regarding the playing of the national anthem on campus than not to do so. However, at Goshen College, our learning process is framed by a commitment to address complex issues, no matter the discipline or subject, with academic rigor and civility. Indeed, at the heart and soul of any great liberal arts education is a commitment to dialogue with others of differing viewpoints. I believe we also have a theological imperative to engage each other in dialogue, because at the source of all conflict is the temptation to believe that our particular point of view is divine, divinely inspired, or nearly so. In a world where we have been so acculturated to disagree with each other in increasingly disagreeable ways, we have a moral imperative to model civil dialogue as the first principle of a Christ-centered peacemaking option for us. Today, I'm delighted that Dr. Kathy Meyer-Reimer, Professor of Education and chair of the department, and Dr. Joe Lichty, professor of peace, justice, and conflict studies, have agreed to join each other in a conversation about the decision to play the anthem at select sports. The common ground between them far outweighs any disagreements they might have. We are hearing only two perspectives on a continuum where rightfully could be many other points of view, some of which include yours. I have no doubt that each loves Goshen College deeply, shares his or her perspective in the spirit of heartfelt learning, in a spirit of honest-to-God dialogue, and in the spirit of civil engagement. I have no doubt that either one would lay down his or her life for the other, in spite of differences they may have. So without further ado, we'll listen to Dr. Kathy, followed by Dr. Joe, and I'll have a few closing comments. Thank you, Kathy and Joe. You've modeled for us passionate learning and compassionate peacemaking at its best. I know I, for one, heard both of you and experienced living in the tension of the truths that you have spoken to us, both of you have spoken to us. We're truly grateful for your willingness to go the second mile in graciousness and Christian charity. Surely, I think, on behalf of all of us, we can say we leave here today wiser in thought. Let us now also leave more able to put into practice peaceful dialogue with those whom we differ. And I will close by reciting the fourth stanza of a wonderful hymn written by the Iona community, which I think expresses for all of us today, however we place ourselves on the continuum of this conversation. Praise the Maker, Christ and Spirit, one God in community, calling Christians to embody oneness and diversity. This the world shall see reflected. God is one, one in three. Go in peace.